Hi everyone! So today Jacinta and I are going to go through the different methods of tattooing. We're going to go through the methods that we like to use, as well as what method is going to be suitable for your clients and each skin type that you're going to come across. So I'm going to hand it over to Jacinta to go through some of these slides and explain a little bit more about all the methods.
Perfect. So we have a few main methods that we're going to touch on today. So we'll move over onto our first one, which is, Ash, if you wouldn't mind popping the next slide through. Perfect. So we have feather touch. We also have cashmere and we have ombre. So they're the main ones that we use. We will speak about a few others that you may see through clients or hear about. Perfect. So feathering, feather touch, microblading. There's also a newer method of feather touch called nano, which you might see or hear about. So basically, this is our most natural form of tattooing. It is a tattoo that does mimic the natural hair strokes throughout the eyebrow. So this looks stunning, but the thing with feather touch is that it isn't suitable for a lot of different skin types. There's really only one or two skin types where this is actually suited to. You really need to have a very, very healthy skin to be able to complete this method of tattooing. You really got to have the ideal skin for this to be the most beneficial to your client. Anything to add on that one, Ash?
No, you covered all of that. It's such a beautiful technique. It's lovely, soft, natural, and it has been, it was basically super popular when cosmetic tattooing first kind of came out, but now people are opting towards, the more ombre method, like you said, because it is more suitable for lots more different skin types. But the feathering is so beautiful, and when you do have the right skin type for it, it really is stunning. It actually is still, I think, my favorite method of all, but yeah.
Mine too. And I still get some clients come in where they're like, oh, I really want feather touch, and I'm looking at their skin thinking, I would love to see you with feather touch, but your skin type is just not suited. And no, I know what you're wanting, but with your skin type, feather touch is just not going to look the way that you want it, the way that we want it to look in your skin. So I think I'm the same. I think it's still, to this day, one of my favorites. But yes, you've really got to be picky, because the end result is not going to be what you want it if you don't choose the right skin for feather touch.
Definitely.
And that's why we have the other method of ombre, powder, soft shading, pixelated shading. You'll see pretty much all of this is the same thing. You can create an ombre brow, like a more powder brow if you want it a little bit more defined. But basically what it is it just mimics a soft shade throughout the eyebrows. So this is much better suited to a wider range of different skin types and conditions. Oily skins is a big one. If you ever do feather touch in an oily skin, it just doesn't hold. It blurs, or it completely breaks down to nothing. You have a lot of issues with it, whereas ombre is great for those more oily skin types or those more thicker skins as well. It's still, and this is, I think a lot of people come in and they're like, I want feather touch because it's the most natural. Ombre can still look very, very natural, and it's important to get that message across to your clients as well, because people are like, no, I don't want, if you have an older lady and they're like, I don't want what the young ones have. That is just completely wrong, and we need to educate those clients that this is a very natural method of tattooing. We can make it look very, very natural. But, I do love ombre, because then you can go the other way and you can really push it and build up color and build up definition and get a bit more of a defined, full looking brow. So it's all about, again, education with our clients. This one is done with the machine. So we use our machine and the cartridge needles. And there are a few different types of needles that you can use as well, depending again on your skin type and the look that you're wanting to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. That was a really good point, about, older clients who are more weary and cautious of getting the ombre look because they think it's just really full on and solid. But that is, totally a misconception. The idea of ombre is exactly what you said. It's like pixelated. So it's fine little dots throughout the eyebrow. So it creates like a shadow behind the eyebrow hair. So this is a really good one, even for blondes, because, people with blonde hair can have their finer hairs sitting on top of the tattoo, which if you had feathering, you wouldn't really be able to see those strokes, where the ombre just looks like they've just been nicely and softly filled in with pencil, which looks really lovely. Another technique that when it's done right can look super natural. And it's also really good for those skin types who are Fitzpatrick 5 and 6. Those skin types the ombre works really well for. The ombre holds a lot better and less traumatic for that skin type as well, because Fitzpatrick 5 and 6 are more prone to scarring. So the ombre is a bit more gentle on the skin, and that's why it can be used on multiple different skin types.
And then we have our last method, which I know I keep saying is my favorite, but I really do love cashmere. It is a mixture of both the feather touch and the ombre shading. So this is suitable for most skin types, but again, with the feathering, you need to keep in mind your client's skin type and let them know if where you're placing the feather stroke, it could make a difference to how it fades. So for example, oily skins or people with a combination skin where they have that oily T-zone, putting the strokes at the start, we could see a little bit more fading happening through those parts. But even on a mature skin, because our skins naturally get finer towards the ends, if we've got a mature skin where it is a little bit healthier through the starts, they could have this type of method. So again, we say most skin types, but it is going to come down to your individual client. There is a few different ways that you can do this. We can do strokes at the start, shading towards the end, which is probably, I'd say, the most common. I do a lot of feathering at the starts and feathering on the tops and the arches, especially if people don't have arches and want kind of it to blend and still look quite natural. So there is really no wrong or right way of combination. You can feather the entire brow and then do some like micro shading, soft ombre throughout the feather touch as well. So there is a few different ways that you can do this, and really it'll just come down to the client that you have and what hair's there and what the look you're hoping to achieve. This one we do use the hand tool for the feather touch and then the machine for the shading. So we use a combination of those two different methods. But I like to explain this as the most luxurious method of tattooing, because it really does just scream luxury having that combination of the two.
I totally agree. And I love how this method, you can customize it to the individual client a little bit more. So depending, you might have a client who has sparse eyebrows in a certain area. So then you can mix it up with a bit of feather strokes with a little bit of pixelated shading in between. And like you said, Jacinta, if you've got someone whose arches are quite flat or really sparse, you can add some nice feather strokes in there and then really build up the body of the brow with the ombre. So I just love how you can literally play around and really customize it to your client's needs and their eyebrow hairs. So this has become probably one of the most popular methods. Do you agree?
Totally. I think you get the best of both worlds, right? Like you have a little bit of natural feather stroke, but also you can build definition with that shading with it. So I think definitely one of the most popular now. So nano. So this is, I'm going to say fairly new, or not fairly new, but it's been spoken about a little bit more so. So nano strokes they're essentially feather stroke, but it is done with a certain needle with a machine. So to do this method, it It is a skill that you will acquire over time, feather touching with the nano stroking, I should say, with the machine. It looks stunning, and you have a lot more kind of control, and it can be done on a few more different skin types.
Yeah, this method is great for someone who wants feathering, but they don't have the right skin type for feathering. So then you can opt to do the nano method. So the nano method usually takes a lot longer. So generally with eyebrows, for a new client, we like to allow 2 hours. Generally with the nano brow, you could be taking like 3 hours, sometimes even more to do the client. And obviously the more you do, the more time you're going to save on, doing each treatment, but you literally are looking at around 3 hours. So the price is generally a lot higher. So this is generally a technique that isn't as common because of that reason, because you can achieve still beautiful brows with the cashmere and microblading or feathering if the client has the right skin for it. But this is a really beautiful technique. I guess it's like a luxury technique, and not everyone does it, and it's one of those things that you really need to master your feathering, your ombre, your cashmere before you get into any nano work. And then we've got the block method.
See both of our faces, how we both cringed there. You will still see this, unfortunately. So it is good to be able to, look, you can tell straight away when something's block. Usually it's darker, it's more solid, and there's usually a lot more pigment change over time, either to more of an ashy tone or more of a warm tone. You see those reds, you see those blues, and you can just tell that, even looking at this photo, you can just tell how deep that would have gone. So block is applied a lot, slightly deeper into the skin than what, say, ombre shading is. This is more permanent based on how it is implanted in the skin. And I think from like 30 years ago, the type of pigment ink that was really used, it just doesn't break down. If someone walked in with this, I would probably recommend for them to get removed. And I'm going to say, when you have block corrections come in, 9 times out of 10 you are going to recommend removal for them, or at least lightening, so that you can put a nice soft shade over the top of it. But like I said, you kind of know straight away when someone comes in with block, and it's very, very hard to color correct, and the color will always be there, unfortunately, and that's why removal is sometimes just your best option.
Definitely. This method, unfortunately, we still see a lot of. And, we could see a client who had it done 10 years ago, and they come in and they still look exactly like this picture. It's very permanent, and the technique is very different to ombre. So when someone comes in and they are like, I don't want ombre because I don't like that solid block look. So this is pretty much what they're talking about, and that's where the misconception comes in with those with the ombre tattooing. But the technique to do block is very different. And we'll go through techniques and things later on, but with the block, you're literally putting the needle all the way in, and you're coloring in. It's very different to how we do ombre. And like we said, ombre is really good for even if you have a sensitive skin. So it is more gentle. Unfortunately, we see these eyebrows quite a lot. And with this girl in particular, we had to do roughly around 6 removal sessions on her. And they lightened quite a bit, but it's really impossible to remove, and some lasers can work as well, but again, you're looking at multiple sessions. So we ended up doing around 6 removal sessions with a salt-based solution, and then we waited for them to heal, and we went over with a lighter color corrector, and they did look, they looked so much better, but unfortunately they're never going to look amazing because we're not working with a clean canvas. So yeah, it's disappointing, you know, when you see eyebrows like this, because yeah, they're permanent.
And it's so hard to tell a client that, isn't it? Like when they're like, can you help me? And you're just like, look, we can make them better. But at the end of the day, that pigment's always going to be there. That is a permanent pigment that will never ever shift. So you need to let people know that it's gonna come through as our pigment breaks down. It's going to start to shine through.
That's it. Your client will be coming back more regularly for touch-ups, because especially with this client, they're quite blue. That blue just comes straight through the pigment. So it does, unfortunately, it's a hard one to correct, but and that's why we definitely do not offer the block method at all, and we never will.
No, and that's why it's important to really fine tune your ombre technique as well, so that we aren't implanting pigment too deep and in a harsh way.
Exactly. It's really all about technique, depth, and obviously choosing the right skin type as well. So what can go wrong if we choose the wrong technique for our client's skin type and skin health? So this is where we get into, you know, the scary results, where we get blurred hair strokes, we get really ashy blue eyebrows, really blocky looking eyebrows. So there's a few things that can go wrong. So what skin types should not have feathering? So again, this all depends really on like skin types, skin health, and skin condition. They're the three big things when we're looking at a skin that is suitable or not suitable for eyebrow feathering. So if we had a client with a really dry skin, we would avoid feathering a really dry skin, because it's going to hold so well in the skin that the eyebrows are going to be really, really dark. Same again, if it's really dehydrated, it's going to suck up that pigment and it's not going to fade at all. If we're dealing with a skin who that has a lot of sun damage, it's really aged, hormonal pigmented skin, those skins are basically what we call an unhealthy skin, and it's going to really shift the color of the pigment. But you're also dealing with more thin skins as well, and therefore you're really going to get those dark ashy brows that are really full on. If we're going looking at a client with a thick skin, someone who is a Fitzpatrick 5 and 6, or a really oily skin with a thicker skin, those hair strokes are going to blur. They're not going to stay crisp. If you were to do feathering on someone with a slightly oily skin, that you can do it, but you just want to space out the strokes a little bit more, because they will expand a little bit. And of course, anyone with an unhealthy skin. Some photos of some feathering on the wrong type of skin. Okay, so we've got a lady here who has really aged skin. This is like a lot more aged than what it should be. So a lot of damage there. And as you can see, these brows are still kind of healing. And this is not our work, by the way. But as you can see, there's a bit of scarring here, and the strokes are really dark. These eyebrows are going to be around for a long time on this lady. They're not going to fade very quick, okay, because her skin is quite thin. And then this one was feathering as well. If you look close, you can see some of the strokes that you can kind of see. But basically you can see they've all blended together, they've blurred. This artist has gone too deep as well, and that's where we're getting a little bit of that blue color. But her skin type is she's not the right candidate for feathering. If you look close, you'll see a lot of redness under her skin, under her cheeks, under her eyes. You can see her pores. It's very porous, and she's also got pigmentation. So her skin is what you would say is unhealthy and does need a lot of work. Looking at, like a thin skin that we can see the redness through, it's sensitive. So when we were talking about eyebrow feathering, we basically were saying that pigmented skin, unhealthy skin, and dehydrated skin, all those skins aren't really suitable. So basically, when we're looking at this client, we want to have a look at her skin type, her skin condition, her skin health, what suitable method would be best. Also, what side effects can come up when we're tattooing a client with skin like this. So basically, we can tell, that she has a dry skin because her wrinkles are quite deep. She's got an aged skin that's sun damaged. Basically, her skin health is unhealthy and she has a thin skin. So the suitable method for this client would be ombre. I would just do minimal passes because she does have a thinner skin. So I would never do feathering on this type of skin and this type of client because of that reason. And these, the side effects, you're going to get blue ashy eyebrows. They're going to hold so well, which will cause really dark eyebrows and blurred strokes sometimes. Very hard to remove, and she's probably looking at a 5-year lifespan with these tattoos, and possible scarring. So for my overall recommendation, I would say that her skin is too delicate to do feathering. The skin is very dry and thin, so only minimal passes is recommended with a shallow depth using ombre. But I would recommend treating the skin to get the skin in a healthier condition before tattooing on a client like this. So not everyone is going to be the ideal candidate, and you have to remember that these people are a walking advertisement for you. So if you look at their skin and you think this tattoo is not gonna, the results are not gonna be good when they heal, or even 6 months down the track or a year down the track, then you need to really educate your client and obviously educate yourself on what you can do to get your client ready for her tattooing. Do you have anything else to add?
I just think that's such a good point. And it's okay to say no, and it's okay to educate on this as well and say, look, this is the best method. This is why it's going to be best for you. This is why this method is going to be unsuitable for you. And if you are insisting to go ahead, this is what can happen as well. And usually if you educate your client on their skin, on what can happen, they will just go with whatever you say, because you're giving a reason as to why it's not going to be suitable. I think a lot of clients that I see that come in with this, they're like, well, no one ever said that to me. If I was told that, I would have listened. And I think that's just a real big mistake, that people just don't educate their clients. Like, it's okay to say to them, this is what's going to happen if this is what you want to do. And if you show that you know what you're talking about, they have that trust in you and they'll go with what you're saying. You can educate them more on what is needed to be done to keep it looking that way as well, with skin maintenance, skin programs, things like that.
Exactly. It's really all about educating your client and consulting them properly, because you want to give them the option, and they are coming to you because you're a professional, so they really are respecting your professional opinion.
Exactly.
So we're having a look at this photo a little bit closer as well. So we are looking at her overall skin type, and she does have a dry skin, even though you can see her pores. She does have a dry skin, but it's quite porous. As you can see her makeup kind of like bunching. Her skin is quite red, and obviously again, like, you can see the spots of pigment that we mentioned before, and these premature lines are also a sign of dehydration. So basically, her skin condition, I've put it down as sun damage, pigmentation, porous skin, dehydrated, redness, redness underlying. So her skin health, we're basically saying she has an unhealthy skin, porous, and obviously some sensitivity. So the suitable method for her would be ombre. And I, again, would do minimal passes because her skin, sometimes the more porous the skin is, the more the skin holds the pigment. So, I mean, that's why you always have 2 visits with your cosmetic tattooing, because you can always touch up on the second visit if it needs more color, but you cannot lighten them once you've done too many passes. To me, she's not a candidate for feathering. And again, this artist has gone too deep, and Jacinta and I can tell that by how blue the tattoo is. Again, even if she did the right pressure for her skin type, they're still going to look pretty similar. Maybe the strokes might be spaced out a little bit more, but still not a good candidate. And obviously you can see the side effects. They're going to be blue, ashy color. It's going to hold, the tattoo is going to hold too well. The strokes are going to blur, and again, really hard to remove. And you're looking at around 5 years with these eyebrows. So my overall recommendation is that the skin is too porous and dehydrated to do feathering. So ombre may be a suitable option. And I would just recommend getting the client on a good skincare routine, as this will help maintain the integrity of the color. So Jacinta and I are going to go into more depth with skin and skin types and things like that. So today we really wanted to focus on what methods you shouldn't do for certain skin type, and what the difference is between the methods. Jacinta, do you want to go through why ombre is more gentle for your skin than feathering?
Sure thing. So ombre doesn't actually go as deep as feather touch. So it implants more pigment throughout the eyebrow at a shallower depth. Ombre is soft pendulum movements. So again, as Ash said, we'll go more depth about the technique and everything, but basically with the ombre, the tip of the needle is just touching in the skin in movements so that it flicks backwards and forward. Basically don't need to put any pressure. The machine does all the work for us. That's what makes it more suitable for different skin types, different skin conditions, such as mature skins where their skin is very, very fine, and more also oily skins as well, because we can do, as Ash mentioned before, more just 1 or 2 passes for a very, very fine skin, and then we can increase that for a skin that obviously needs it.
Yes, it can even be done without numbing. So it is a lot more gentle for you, for your skin. So it does heal quicker. And yeah, like we said, suitable for more skin types, like thin skin. Minimal passes for a thinner skin, obviously because the thinner skins are going to hold the pigment really well because they are thinner. So you can see that there's not as much skin coating the pigment. Mature skin, obviously mature skin is thinner as well. Oily skin types, because feathering is going to blur the strokes. So oily skins are better suited for ombre. Fitzpatrick 5 and 6 skin types, they generally have more of an oilier, thicker skin. And dry skin, minimal passes, because it's going to really suck up that pigment. Really just adjust your passes and pressure depending on what skin type you're working on. So basically the method you choose really depends on client skin type, skin condition, and skin health. Other considerations is the hair type, the hair density of your client, the client's desired look and expectations. And also you want to educate the client and explain to the client what method is going to look the most natural and complementing on them. So it's your job to consult with your client to see what they're looking for, but it's also your job to educate them on all options and all the outcomes from each method. Basically treat your clients as if they don't know anything about tattooing and they don't know anything about their skin, so they don't know what outcome they're going to get. So they're going to come in and say, oh, I think I want eyebrow feathering. and they're going to show you these beautiful photos of eyebrow feathering that they want, and if they aren't suitable, there's no way you're going to be able to give them the results that they're showing you. So you have to be the one to educate your client on what is best for them, and that's why we offer different methods, because not one fits all. It's customized to your client. You want to do what is going to be best for their skin type, but also what's going to look nice with the type of hair they have for their eyebrows. If you've got someone with really thick, dense, curly, long eyebrow hairs, you would want to do a bit of a combination with the cashmere. If you just did eyebrow feathering, it might look a little bit too unnatural because it may not be 3D enough for someone whose eyebrows generally are a little bit coarse and stick out. So you want to work with what hair density, what hair type, and what skin condition your client has to get the best result. And remember, you are in charge. So at the end of the day, you make the decisions, but really educate your client on why that decision is best suited for them. Lastly, we've just done a little flow chart to basically tell you what you're in control of, what you can control to get the best results for your client. Okay, so we want the optimum results for your client. We want the best results possible. So how we get the best results is determining what skin type, condition, and health your client's skin is in. Then that is going to help us to determine what method and technique we use. And then we can determine what depth and pressure and how many passes we're going to use for that client. So these things we're going to take into consideration to get the best results for our client. These are things that we can control. Okay, we obviously give our client aftercare. We want them to follow the aftercare, but at the end of the day, we can't control what they do when they leave the salon. And in the future, 6 months down the track, you might get someone who falls pregnant or has some hormonal changes, medication changes, things like that, which can cause pigment change and changes to their tattoo. So these are the things that we can control. So if we really focus on those 4 things, then we are doing the best job we can for our client. And it really comes down to the skin health and the method that we're choosing. So that's why it's really important to educate yourself on the different techniques and why they're suitable for your client and why they aren't suitable.
I just wanted to say as well, if anybody is looking back and thinking, oh my God, how do I even determine what a thin skin looks like? Don't stress. We're going to go through all of that so that you are going to be able to accurately determine what skin type or what skin condition your client has. So you are going to get that information so that you can make the best informed decision on this thing. So yeah, just in case anybody's sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, there is so much I need to know and educate my client in, there's going to be full modules just on that. Also our consultation just on what Ash said about hormonal changes, medications. We're going to go through absolutely all of that in a separate module as well. So for those of that are just freaking out a little bit, don't stress. You're going to learn all of that.
Exactly. Don't get overwhelmed. We have quite a few modules to get through. And yeah, you will definitely be, once you've finished, you're going to be confident in consulting your client and determining what kind of skin type they have so you can deliver really good results for your client. So we will leave it on that, and we will see you in the next module.